When Kingdom Hearts begins with the first Kingdom Hearts game, we see the Destiny Islands through Sora, Riku, and Kairi's lens as a place that seems infinite, but feels very limited. It's also a place where friendship seems pretty unshakable, and the battle between light and darkness is, at least to the Destiny trio, unheard of. Sora and his friends journey from the simplicity of Destiny Islands all the way to the Keyblade Graveyard in Kingdom Hearts 3, and entering into the realm of unreality that is Quadratum, at least in Sora and Riku's case, isn't just a change in setting, it's a spiritual rite of passage, an odyssey from childhood wonder into the uncertainty of adulthood. Through this lens, the Kingdom Hearts saga transforms into something more than a battle between light and darkness. It becomes a meditation on growing up, losing illusions, and seeking meaning in a world like Quadratum that may not carry the same sort of whimsy as other worlds that Sora and his friends have traveled to. Their journeys from childlike wonder to existential reality may mirror for us a spiritual rite of passage in the modern age. Welcome back, y'all. This is your girl, Empowered Muse, and today we're going to talk about how the Kingdom Hearts series reflects this spiritual coming of age, not only for Sora and his friends and some of the other Keyblade wielders we meet throughout the series, but for us as the audience as well. And when it comes to talking about the spiritual coming of age, it's more so not necessarily what we may believe or not believe in, but more so how we grew up and understood concepts like empathy, morality, good and bad, nuance. So really, within this definition, all of us have gone through this sort of spiritual coming of age. So this exploration slash deep dive will cover the majority of the Kingdom Hearts games to include Days and Dream Drop Distance. However, due to the video mainly focusing on the current Keyblade wielders, I won't really be touching on Union Cross or Dark Road. I might do a follow-up video, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, if we can explore the spiritual growth and struggles of the Kingdom Hearts Key saga. When Kingdom Hearts began with the first Kingdom Hearts game, we're introduced to this existing battle between light and darkness, and for it being the first game in the series, it was explained in this almost linear way where light was seen as good and hopeful, and darkness was seen as bad, despite the fact that darkness existed within every heart. It was also sort of this interesting dynamic when considering how Sora, Riku, and Kairi might cope with this on a more internal spiritual level, because we actually see darkness kind of personified with the Heartless, the Disney villains, including Maleficent, and Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. And it's even more interesting because when we see the Keyblade first appear, it seems to be this weapon of protection that symbolized light and hope. And it's not until we see Riku, at the time being possessed by Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, wielding, well, two darker versions of the Keyblade of Hearts, which is used to free hearts from the body, and Riku's Way to Dawn, which just looks like a more jagged and violent blade warped in this dark purple and indigo shade. That said, despite what we know now about Ansem, Seeker of Darkness's origins, he actually didn't wield a Keyblade in his actual form. He did wield this sort of bow staff in like his final form in the final boss fight, but can we really consider that a Keyblade with what we now know about Keyblades? So I do think this choice of not having Ansem, Seeker of Darkness wield a Keyblade puts us as gamers experiencing the story in the mind that the Keyblade is only wielded by those who have enough light in their hearts. And the lore of the Keyblade and how Sora wound up with the Keyblade instead of Riku on the Destiny Islands initially sort of solidifies this. But of course, as we later learn in the series, that this idea isn't fully accurate or there's a little bit more nuance to it. Additionally, we can definitely say in Kingdom Hearts 1 that Riku was actually locked into this sort of spiritual battle as he was feeling these spurts of negative emotions like jealousy and anger and even ambition to a degree. And these emotions were further manipulated by Maleficent, only for Riku to be fully possessed by Ansem, Seeker of Darkness by the time we get to Hollow Bastion. However, we also see Riku's persistence in surviving and overcoming this spiritual battle, not just here in Kingdom Hearts 1, but throughout much of the series. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories sees Sora and Riku facing spiritual tests due to the nature of Castle Oblivion. However, while Sora is tested on his memories, causing him to question what's real and who's actually important to him, Riku is tested on facing darkness, the powers he might have over darkness, and the guilt and shame he has for previously giving in. Additionally, Naminé's role also called into question what she might have been feeling spiritually, since she was made to manipulate Sora's memories. And while she did act as her own person after Sora defeated some of the organization members, and primarily Marluxia, who were inside the castle, she still saw herself as a non-person. In fact, even up to Kingdom Hearts 3, we still see Naminé in this sort of more sacrificial and serving role, as opposed to fully being her own person, at least before she got her own body. So I guess we'll see whether Naminé sort of gets more of a spiritual growth in this next arc now that she does have her own body. Chain of Memories also saw Riku's internalized struggle with darkness and the hold that Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, had over him. In fact, his reverse rebirth story was basically a story of his spiritual battles with darkness, guilt, and shame. And I think the struggle that Riku went through in Chain of Memories eventually enabled him to reclaim his identity. Riku finding a friend and mentor in King Mickey by the end of Chain of Memories gives him sort of an unofficial guide for his spiritual growth. Even when after Chain of Memories, Riku decides to go his own way because he still feels Ansem, Seeker of Darkness's hold on him. He does so through an open conversation with Mickey and with Mickey's understanding. Kingdom Hearts 2 sort of shines a light on not only some of the real nuances of light and darkness, but also this sense of emptiness and what could occur when someone's soul or spirit is basically empty. So remember when I called Xemnas a cult leader in my previous video and explained that he capitalized on certain people being lost or seeking something more? Xemnas' actions throughout Kingdom Hearts 2 and even 358 over 2 days reflects how, despite the fact that he does have a goal of creating this version of Kingdom Hearts, he's seeking this goal allegedly without a heart, but we see that nobody's actually do feel and might have hearts after all. At least they very much act like it. It's just that Xemnas doesn't want to feel these negative emotions, so he suppresses them. So through Xemnas' suppression and encouraging the suppression within Organization 13, we see how members of the organization are basically spiritually starved. But through Sora's observations with Organization 13, we see that he learns the power of intention behind wielding light and darkness. More so darkness, since it's assumed at this point that one wouldn't or maybe couldn't misuse light. And he also learns the importance of connections, like he sort of sees this in Kingdom Hearts 1, and after having his memories manipulated in Chain of Memories, I think it's in Kingdom Hearts 2 where we see him sort of put it all together, not only through the bonds he's made in these Disney worlds, but also through his bonds with Donald, Goofy, Mickey, Riku, and Kairi. 358 over 2 days explores the concept of friendship among those who shouldn't exist, belonging, purpose, sacrifice, and grief. So because the story of Days focuses more on the stories and interactions between Roxas, Axel, and Xion, we see the side of the Kingdom Hearts series that explores the idea of friendship that can grow these characters spiritually, but because of the circumstances and the tragedy of the choices that were presented to this trio, we see how the spiritual growth sort of stalls a bit due to their fates. And it was mainly the choice presented to Xion between continuing to exist at the risk of Sora's memories never returning or rejoining Sora, but disappearing as part of the process. So this tragedy that falls among the Sea Salt trio that revolves around Xion's existence is reflected in Roxas's anger at what happens and at the organization, to where he chooses to go out on his own in this sort of self-destructive manner, only to lose against Riku once Riku embraced Ansem, Seeker of Darkness's form. And it's also reflected in Axel's initial desperation to keep Xion and Roxas in line and basically keep them around, and later his resignation that both of his friends are basically now gone. So again, the spiritual journey of Roxas, Axel, and Xion are sort of stalled by the end of Days and into Kingdom Hearts 2. And as for the spiritual journey of the series, it's showing us how even sacrifice and grief can further grow the series for the audience. Birth by Sleep actually reflects this concept when naivety and good intentions can still result in tragedy. Because Birth by Sleep chronologically takes place before Kingdom Hearts 1, our main characters actually know less about the machinations of the interactions of light and darkness. So in their views, darkness isn't welcome at all. and there's not a lot of room for nuance like we see from Kingdom Hearts 1 through Kingdom Hearts 2 with Riku's experiences. This is another game in the series where the unfortunate circumstances resulting in tragedy sort of stalls, literally, the Wayfinder trio's growth for about 10 years. But this time, the tragedy that occurred wasn't necessarily due to a hard choice that resulted in sacrifice, but it was due to a series of manipulation from Xehanort, pride from Terra, nihilism from Vanitas, forced sacrifice from Ventus, and voluntary sacrifice and the weight of responsibility from Aqua. So with the story of Birth by Sleep, we can say that each of the Wayfinder trio faced very intense spiritual battles and growth from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. But again, because of how Birth by Sleep ended, each of their growth was basically stalled in different ways, with Terra now being basically possessed and hijacked by Xehanort, Ventus falling into a coma, and Aqua being trapped in the realm of darkness. So for the spiritual journey of the series with Birth by Sleep, we see how basically hindsight is another way to grow the series, even if said hindsight did focus on the tragedy of people's choices, leading to the Wayfinder trio basically being lost for 10 years until the events of Kingdom Hearts 3. Dream Drop Distance highlights how even someone who has grown stronger over time can still be spiritually vulnerable, and how someone who has struggled spiritually in the past can ascend to honor because of their growth. So Dream Drop Distance is sort of like Chain of Memories in telling Sora and Riku's story through showing two sides and two stories occurring in the same place. With Sora, despite his physical growth, he was still shown to be spiritually vulnerable when Xehanort and the organization were able to basically infiltrate his dreams and place him in this comatose state of sleep in order to prep to take over his body. And this vulnerability is sort of the main reason that he wasn't able to pass the Mark of Mastery exam and become a Keyblade Master. For Riku, we've seen just how much he struggled internally and spiritually to not only face the guilt for falling to darkness once, but to also feel worthy after falling to darkness and taking on Ansem, Seeker of Darkness's form at the end of days into Kingdom Hearts 2. However, despite Riku's struggles and him questioning his worthiness, he was still able to ascend through jumping in to save Sora from his state of sleep without hesitation, which led Riku to passing his Mark of Mastery exam and being named a new Keyblade Master. Additionally, we sort of see this form of acceptance at the end of Dream Drop Distance into Kingdom Hearts 3, where Riku's in a place to accept his abilities to use both light and darkness. So for the spiritual journey of the series with Dream Drop Distance, we see how one can be exposed as basically spiritually weak despite being physically strong, as well as how the results of spiritual growth can reflect on a person despite the internal doubts they have had over a period of time. Additionally, this comparison between Sora and Riku and how their bond continued to grow throughout Dream Drop Distance also grew the series. Kingdom Hearts 3 seems to show, again, how much one has grown over time, as well as how much one can still be vulnerable to being reckless, despite their selfless actions. A lot of Kingdom Hearts 3 does focus on Sora exhibiting doubts, selflessness, and a bit of recklessness that works in tandem with this selflessness. Kingdom Hearts 3 also focuses on the healing of old wounds through reunions, specifically with some of the old organization members returning to their somebody form, and Ansem the Wise, the Wayfinder trio, and the Sea Salt trio. The height of Sora's spiritual journey takes place in the Keyblade Graveyard, where we basically see him break when the Heartless take all of his friends and he loses hope. After Sora survives this initial attack and gains his form back, he chases after his friends' hearts in order to restore them and return them to the Realm of Light. However, this is when we begin to see that despite Sora doing this incredibly selfless thing, it could also be argued that it was incredibly reckless. And I think if he had only done this the one time, he probably would have still been okay. But because Xehanort sacrificed Kairi as his insurance policy, Sora used the power of waking once more to go back in time and save her. So throughout his battles in the Keyblade Graveyard, once we got more details in Remind, we do see Sora facing his doubts and going through this spiritual crisis, at least when he first lost his friends to darkness when they first entered the Keyblade Graveyard. However, he seems to be able to resolve his feelings through this sense of selflessness, at least after seeing that his friends are in fact okay. And all of this leads to Sora disappearing at the very end of Kingdom Hearts 3 as a cause for him abusing the power of waking. With each of the trios and even some of the former organization members' reunions, we get to see this spiritual reckoning where the characters in these dynamics have been able to reclaim their full selves, which is why it was so pivotal to see the likes of Terra, Shion, and Roxas return as their full selves with their own bodies and own autonomies. So the spiritual journey of the series, on the one hand, got this pivotal sense of closure for the Wayfinder trio and Sea Salt trio, and on the other hand, just got a bit more complicated for Sora. From what we see in the first teaser trailer in Kingdom Hearts 4, Sora is now in Quadratum, which is seen as a sort of afterlife, which means that he'll likely have to confront the idea of existence itself. This can also point to the idea of Sora facing this hyper-realistic world as reality, even though to him it's considered unreality or fiction. But being in this hyper-realistic world forces him to face this sense of accountability, mainly for overusing his powers to save his friends in Kingdom Hearts 3. Additionally, being in Quadratum might introduce this reflection of the world being in a modern spiritual crisis where, despite the ease of access to technology, more people are actually alienated and hyper individualistic. So in this world of Quadratum, you might have people who may be seeking some sort of deeper meaning. And with the Master of Masters presence in Quadratum, his plans and actions will likely bring about this question of fate versus free will when it comes to his perspective on the interactions of light and darkness. By the time Sora stands in the hyper-realistic neon-lit streets of Quadratum, he's no longer the boy who would race and play swords with Riku for a taste of a sense of adventure. His and his friends' journeys and experiences with the intersections of light and darkness have stripped away the security of clear answers and simple victories, replacing them with ambiguity, loss, and responsibility. And yet, the same journey has given him something far more valuable: the ability to keep searching even when the path ahead is unclear. Destiny Islands and Quadratum aren't just two pivotal points within a series, they might be two pivotal points of one spiritual journey. One representing the beginning of the dream, the other the awakening from it. If Kingdom Hearts began as a story fighting for the light, it has evolved into a story about abusing it and or living without it in plain sight, and yet still believing it's there and might even be the answer to all. So the spiritual journey that's occurred in the Kingdom Hearts series isn't just Sora or the Destiny Trio or even all of the current Keyblade wielders coming of age. In many ways, it's a reflection of our growth and coming of age as well. I want to hear from you, so let me know what you think about the spiritual journey of the Kingdom Hearts series in the comments below. If you want to explore some more Kingdom Hearts theories, I'll be linking another Kingdom Hearts theory video here in the end screen. As always, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video and want to watch more Kingdom Hearts content. And if there's anyone who may have questions about what to expect for the upcoming Kingdom Hearts game, be sure to share this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.